So a big trade to catch up from yesterday. The Miami Dolphins have finally traded Jaylen Waddle after weeks or months of speculation about his status to the Denver Broncos in exchange for the Broncos' 30th overall pick, a third-round pick, and a fourth-round pick. But they're swapping fourth-round picks in the process. So really giving up a first and a third for Waddle, reported by Ian Rappaport. And the trio's over now. Now you look at the main guys with Tyreek Hill being released, Tua being released, now with the Atlanta Falcons, and now the final piece with that trio per se is gone now, traded to the Denver Broncos. And also, if you want, on a side note, you kind of question up in the air about Devin Achane, about his status as well. If that's someone that many teams are trying to look at, if they want to trade him as well. You feel like at this point here for a rebuild, you might as well, at his point, with him coming up for a contract and his age, still relatively young, but probably don't want to pay the guy a lot. So look for another name for Miami to potentially be traded off as well. But sticking with Jaylen Waddle here, again, the Broncos essentially give up the 30th overall pick and a third-round pick. And again, just put out there, fourth-round pick swaps for Jaylen Waddle. And they kind of break down the contract right now thus far for what the Broncos take over here. He has a $4.9 million cap hit in 2026. In 2027, it jumps up to $27 million, a little over 27, I should say. And they do have a potential out in 2028 there. They do take on a $9.2 million dead cap if they do choose so to opt into that. If not, in 2030, he's set to make $30.4 million, and then he has a void year in 2029 and 2030. At least for 2029, he has a $6.1 million dead cap hit right there, or for the void year, and he's an unrestricted free agent at age 31 in 2029. And also, too, breaking down real quick the teams, how they stack right there for the cap situation. Miami is dead last in the league for $2.4 million over the cap at 32nd, of course, and then we have Denver at 20th here at $18.4 million, and Miami just keeps on adding on to the dead cap. They do with Tua and countless other players on the roster. They just keep piling up the dead cap, which is insane to see. At the point it's at right now, $111 million, or a little over $111 million as of right now. And for myself, I like the move. I like this move for the Denver Broncos because they really needed a wide receiver one. And I know Courtland Sutton is a wide receiver one. You can certainly question of a caliber wide receiver one he is. He's still a good wide receiver. I think at times underrated player in the league, but they needed more than that. I mean, this is evident for the last few seasons. They needed someone else to pair up with Courtland Sutton. And they tried that years ago with Jerry Jeudy. Did not work out in Denver. Had some success in Cleveland thus far. Not too anything crazy, though. But still, you look at the roster here, and it was missing that speed guy. And then you have Marvin Mims on there, but it's not the caliber of Jaylen Waddle. No question about that. And I think now with Jaylen Waddle plugged into this offense, it certainly is much better for Bo Nix. No question about that. Now when we look at for the offense, wide receiver 1, Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver 2, Courtland Sutton, wide receiver 3, I penciled in Marvin Mims. For running backs, it is a little bit shaky because of how RJ Harvey played. I don't think they were really amazing. It sucked that KJ Dobbins did get hurt because he was playing well, and they do bring him back on a 2-year deal. At wide receiver, running back 1, I penciled in RJ Harvey, of course, because of the injury. J.K. Dobbins at running back 2, and Evan Ingram at tight end 1. And I think overall that is good enough for Bo Nix. I mean, is there anything elite? Potentially Jaylen Waddle could take that step where he is a great wide receiver 2, but now can he be that true wide receiver 1? We saw that in his rookie year where he did get a high volume of targets, receptions, and a good amount of yards in his rookie year without Tyreek Hill. With Tyreek Hill, the stats certainly jumped up a little bit here. Last couple seasons have been rough, with of course, Tua missing time with injury, and just how the offense has been inconsistencies at times with Waddle as well in the whole offense. It certainly has taken a little dip in production, but did have a bounce back season in 2025 compared to 2024. 910 yards, 64 receptions, 6 touchdowns. Pretty good for a wide receiver too. But you see there at the high end, the explosive offense, high-flying offense in 2022 and 23 when Mike McDaniels first got there, over 1,300 yards receiving, a little over 1,000 yards in 2023 as well. The targets have overall been great, and certainly his career high was back to when he was a rookie season when they didn't have Tyreek Hill, didn't really have anyone else at 140 targets, but still has done well since then with Tyreek Hill. 117, 104, 83 his career low, and 100 in 2025. And I look at this, and he is a great wide receiver, but the big question is, can he take that next jump to being that guy? Now, he does have a good wide receiver next to him. It's not prime Tyreek Hill at that point, but Courtland Sutton is still a again, a good wide receiver. I think at times underrated. Doesn't get talked about as much of what he's done in his career thus far. So he does have a running mate there. Not elite, not amazing, but he does have a good running mate alongside him to put up some good numbers here. But I would still, of course, put Waddle as the wide receiver one, even though Cortland Sutton has been that guy there since he's been in Denver. Yes, Waddle, I think, automatically comes in that one. Certainly at this point here, just younger, faster, and I think he's more of an explosive player for this offense. And what Sean Payton and what Bo Nix want to do on this offense here, and you look at how close they were to getting the Super Bowl. And I will always say, I think maybe a lot of us can agree, if Bo Nix was healthy in the AFC Championship game, they go to the Super Bowl. No question about that. I mean, it was just because of just horrible play from the quarterback for Denver in the AFC Championship game. That's what it really came down to for Jarrett Stidham. That's what it was. And so you look at that, and the offense was good enough. Maybe at times, maybe not as flashy, maybe not as explosive they want to be, which is why they get Jaylen Waddle, of course, but enough to get to the Super Bowl. That we can question, don't want to go too much farther down the road with that. Speculating, could they beat the Seahawks? How would they went? Who knows what that? But I do truly believe they would have made it with Bo Nix in that championship game. But still, they feel like they need more pieces on that side, and they opt out of getting a wide receiver in the first round early on in the draft. It looks like to get a proven player in Jaylen Waddle. Now, of course, he is still in his prime here at age 27 right now. He will be 28 midway through the season on, November 25th, kind of towards the end of the season, I should say. But you still have a few years left. And if everything just kind of falls apart here, you do have the opt-out in 2028, but you take on $9.2 million for dead cap, which is nothing at all, really, compared to other players, as we see from Miami, what they've done with Tua and other players on the team as well. So you still have Jaylen Waddle for his prime for a few years. If you want to ride it out to the end of his contract, there's no issue with that. He'll be 31 at that point there. Probably won't be back with the Broncos at that point there, even if he does play well. I doubt it at that point because they want to just move off of just move off of him. Maybe at that point they have other players in place that they've drafted or signed that can step up and replace them, again, younger, faster, more athletic at that point than what Jaylen Waddle will be in 2028 at age 30. But I like this now with a win now mindset, a win now mentality, because what was the Broncos really going to do with the 30th overall pick this year? Probably not too much. Could they hit on the pick? Could they have done well on that selection? Maybe, just like anybody, of course, at that point. But it's tough to find someone, especially if they were targeting a wide receiver, that's better right now in a win now situation compared to what Jaylen Waddle can offer you. That's plain and simple for that. And we always hear people talk about for late round picks. It's a late first round pick, which is basically a second round pick that people argue with. And you can go down the list for the third round pick as well, close to a fourth round pick. So really, if you want to be technical of that and that mindset, they give up a second and a fourth for Jaylen Waddle, which is great value for that, even with the contract he's on and so forth, the age and all that. I love the move here. Again, I think he'll fit in well with Sean Payton, what this offense wants to do. They want to open things up here and try and even progress Bo Nix even further in his third year. And I think he did progress a little bit in his sophomore year. I don't think it was maybe as a crazy jump that people expected to. I mean, we knew that from Bo Nix coming in the draft, that he had a high floor, maybe not as a high of a ceiling, where you kind of, at this point here with his age, being an older quarterback coming out of the draft, that you know what you're going to get. He could build off of things. He can be better, of course, but it's not going to be a high ceiling compared to other, big picks you want to call it, as for people that maybe is not as raw of a talent, or not as good of a prospect and as raw of a talent, but has higher upside, which is no issue for the Broncos to go in that direction with Bo Nix. It's been well for that, but you see a little bit more progression, a little bit better in his third year. Again, not saying he played horrible a sophomore year, maybe he didn't take the jump that maybe people hoped to be, but it was still, again, what I talked about a few minutes ago, it was good enough to get to the Super Bowl, which is, you can't complain with that. Bo Nix is a winner in the season. He found ways to win and found ways to make plays late in the game. That's all you can ask for. So they have their quarterback, no question about that. And I think adding another great piece for Bo Nix's offense to help even further progress his offense and his career as well, his development, I should say, is immense. Especially trying to open things downfield there. Now you have two people, Marvin Mims, who is more of a specialist, specialty player, a specialist player, on top of also having Jaylen Waddle, who can be that legitimate, again, number one wide receiver for him and be a threat for them. And again, which going back to Marvin Mims, open things up there because people are going to be so focused on Jaylen Waddle as well as Cortland Sutton in the field as well, which can give the opportunity even more for Marvin Mims to do what he needs to do on the field too on top of that. So I think overall, again, wide receiver is great. Running back, I do question a little bit because there's how things went last year, but again, with injury and Harvey being his rookie season, you again hope that he progresses well into the sophomore year. I have no worry about that. Just maybe not. It doesn't really jump off the paper for me when I look at the roster here. But again, I don't think it's a horrible situation. It's a big issue for that. Could they go in the draft for a running back? Maybe. Again, if they wanted to. But I think they're fine with Harvey and Dobbins. Ingram is a solid tight end for them. So overall for this roster, I like what the Broncos did here in adding a piece here. I cannot rave that enough about that. Now getting to the Miami Dolphins side with this. This is again inevitable with this rebuild. You already got rid of Tyreek Hill in releasing him. You already released Tua, who's already on a new team, and now Jaylen Waddle felt like it was the final piece to fall. And we had these discussions all the way back to the deadline where the Bills almost pulled the trigger and almost got Jaylen Waddle for a similar type of price. It was a first and a third. They just couldn't come to an agreement of what year the first round pick was, and Waddle goes for basically the same price for that. Again, they're just throwing in fourth round picks to swap. Not that much of a big deal there. So at least for that perspective, for their perspective, if they didn't lose value in Jaylen Waddle, I don't think you would have regardless, but certainly you get the same value you wanted in that trade for the deadline from the Bills with the Denver Broncos here. But just add it on to the picks they have right now. Because you look at it, they are stacked in 2026. They have two first round picks, two first round picks, one second round pick, 4 third round picks, 1 fourth round pick, 1 fifth round pick, two seventh round picks. And half of those are from other teams. The 30th pick, of course, is from Denver. The 87th overall pick is from Philly. The 90th overall pick is Houston. 94 is Denver. The 40th is, the 130th is Denver. And then the last pick in the 7th round, 238, is the Chargers. So they have stockpiled a ton. And they need that, of course, with what we just showed you when I showed you the team's salary caps, the dead cap. They have a lot of dead cap they have to manage for the next couple of seasons. They do. I mean, I'm surprised they would have let go to it because of the dead cap situation. I thought you would try to ride out for one more year and just severely lower the dead cap to make it more manageable. They wanted to cut bait with it. They wanted to go into a different direction, which no issue with that, but just surprised they would take out a dead cap on top of Jaylen Waddle and other players as well that they've got rid of. On top of that, they need all those picks as possible. They need as much rookie contracts, cheap contracts as possible to manage through the next couple of seasons before things open up even better for them, and then they can start adding pieces and big contracts again, and also to if those players do hit, have the money to re-sign them down the road and not have to worry about letting people go because the cap situation is too bad at that point there. So for the Dolphins, unfortunately for the fans there, it's another rebuild for this process. Have not won a playoff game in damn near a long time at this point here, well over 2 decades, of course. So we'll see what happens in 2026. Don't be too optimistic with that. You look at the receiving group and the offense in general. You look at the wide receivers, Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert, who they just signed not that long ago. You have Malik Washington, Devin Achane, who's the only bright spot with this offense. But again, at this point here, when everyone's is gone and the whole offense is really butchered, yes, you kind of look at that and go, that's probably the next player to go off the board there, and probably teams wouldn't surprise me if they're already calling about his status, about what they want to give up on him. He's an explosive player, great player in the league, had a great year this year in his career thus far. So yeah, again, I won't be surprised if people are calling, and they probably will get a decent penny for him, maybe a third round pick, second round pick there. I think he will get some good value for him in return. So that's another pick potentially to add on to the draft board here for 2026. Jalen Wright as well, person that came out of, I think it was Texas A&M a couple years ago too, and you have Greg Dolch at tight end. So a huge step back compared to what the Denver Broncos have, and of course who they signed, Malik Willis, in the offseason here, which is, I don't know, we'll see. I don't know how the direction. That's certainly a gamble, I should say, before I start, kind of fumble my words here. It's certainly an interesting selection here. It's a gamble for signing. I get he played well in the very few games he played with the Packers, but we have to emphasize the very few games he played for that. He played, a small amount. I mean, what it came down to. Just looking at the stats here real quick, 11 games, it's like this game played. So, definitely a decent amount. I should say not a ton, but it's definitely a decent amount. But even still with that, it's just, I don't think that's enough to really think like, hey, this guy could be something. Now I'm happy that he's getting his opportunity, of course, and kind of having that redemption and trying to build his way back into the league after a disastrous start with the Titans. Well, you got to blame it on him or just how Tennessee, as you've seen in years past, have been run last few seasons. So again, I like to see him get his opportunity. Not hating on him. I like that he's getting the opportunity to prove himself in the league here and show that he can be a quality starter in the NFL. I just don't know what we're going to get for this, with the Dolphins, especially with the offense that is gutted right now. Now, of course, they're going to be adding pieces in the offseason. I'm sure they'll probably be adding some people in free agency and certainly in the draft as well to start with this rebuild process. Do expect them to get a wide receiver in the first round. That's not really a big prediction by myself there, but even at this point here, even if they add a wide receiver or two, it's just very bare bones when I look at the stats here for Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert, Malik Washington, Greg Dolch, and again, you're kind of assuming that Devin Achane is going to be here for 2026 if he doesn't get traded. So that's the only bright spot. The only great player that Malik Willis has in 2026 outside of that is very lackluster. And it's going to be a tough season for Dolphins fans, which they all know, of course. We've seen the process of the rebuild and cleaning house, which I like with getting rid of the GM, head coach, and quarterback. Guys start fresh here. It has been working the last few years, especially the last 2 years with slow starts and kind of finding their way back, but being too little too late at this point here. So I like it from the Dolphins' perspective. It sucks that, from years ago, you make that great trade for the Trey Lance to get all those draft picks. You get Chubb, Tyreek Hill, and Jaylen Waddle in the process there. You build a team. You had some great moments there, especially between these two teams, infamous 70-20 game a few seasons ago. And the fact that it's fallen so fast like this is, it sucks to see from a Dolphins perspective because you had high-flying offense. You had some great players on this team, especially defensively as well. And it just all fell apart. It really didn't come to anything. So, yes, it was time to rebuild here, and they have plenty of picks. And I'm talking about 2027 either. I don't know what the stats of that, of what picks they have there on that side of things. I'm sure they'll be adding on as well if they want to get rid of more players. But 2026 is loaded. It is. Would I be surprised if they use all those draft picks on players solely? No. Like I said, you want to get as much cheap contracts as possible. Will they use those to kind of trade for players to bring in? Sure, that's certainly a possibility. They have the ammunition to do so. They certainly have the ammunition to trade up and get a player if they want to do that. Again, 4 third-round picks is a ton. If they want to trade the 30th pick and a couple third-round picks and move up, again, high in the first round on top of the pick they have at 11th overall, yeah. They can certainly do so if they want to. If they want to pull the Texans, they have back-to-back first-round picks, like second and third, like they did back in, was it 2023 for C.J. Stroud? Yeah, for C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. If they want to pull someone like that, they certainly have the ammunition to do so as well. If they want to, go into the 2027 picks as well, if they want to do that. So they have a lot of wiggle room to do whatever they want here. And again, for this one, it's not surprising for the move here. Jaylen Waddle has been the trade talks and trade market for a while, again, going all the way back to the trade deadline, and probably even a little bit of that prior to that as well. So again, it just sucks for the fans to see another great player gone that you drafted and you actually hit on the pick there and played well. It's tough to see those guys gone as well. And we'll see what the new era comes with this new regime and what this team wants to do moving forward with all that draft picks, and then trying to navigate that dead cap that they have for the next 2 seasons. But again, overall recap here, I have no issue with both sides of this. I'm not a big component of bashing one team because I don't think we've really had horrible trades thus far. Even going back to Max Crosby, if that would have panned out, I have no issue with that. I understand from the Raiders' perspective, it's a rebuild, like the Dolphins, of course, and you want to maximize the profit you're getting from Max Crosby. And 2 first-round picks would go a long way with that. You get that money off your books there, and the Ravens get a blue chip player to help them push over the edge. So the last few trades that have come along, I'm not harsh with them. I don't think they're horrible that we've seen thus far. I get it from both perspectives here, and again, I like the ideas from both sides. The Dolphins are in a rebuild. They want to maximize the value for Jaylen Waddle, get a first and a third and a 4th round pick swap, get extra picks there, and the the Broncos get their player in a win now situation. So I'm very interested to see how this works out for the Broncos and Sean Payton, how Jaylen Waddle progresses, and if he can really take that step forward and get back to, at the very least, 2022 here, where he is one of the best wide receivers in the league, or can even be a career high year for his receiving, yards, receptions, or touchdowns. We'll see how it plays out there and how he fits alongside Cortland Sutton and how that connection is with Bo Nix and Jaylen Waddle. And then again, from Miami's perspective, to see what they do moving forward as we progress through the offseason and see what they do with those draft picks as well.